Welcome to Anime Real Talk, where we discuss Japan, anime, manga, and much more. It doesn't matter if you're new to anime, if you're a casual or a complete weeb. Join the conversation here. I'm Russ, and I'm joined by...
Talha.
And Ramin.
So, guys, I feel like we left last week's podcast on a little bit of a cliffhanger, anime mid-episode cliffhanger. Come back at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back, guys. So, for those of you who didn't watch last week's, this week's might not make a whole lot of sense at the beginning, but then it'll make sense later on. But basically, we were discussing our trips to Japan and Korea. We didn't hear that much about Korea, I don't think, last week, but I think this week we should be delving more into the differences between them. I'm interested to hear Tala and Ramin's experiences going there, because prior to meeting them, I didn't really know much about K-culture at all. I didn't really have an interest in Korea other than barbecue, as bad as that sounds. But after becoming friends with them, it seems like it's a place that I would really, really want to go to. So I'm interested to hear more about their experience going there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can get some comparisons going.
Yeah. So I think last week we finished the topic talking about maybe some language differences. I remember that I was talking about going to the ramen shop and getting that common word, which was spicy, with the ramen chef, talking a little bit of Japanese with him to tell him the ramen was delicious, and him getting super, super excited. And I don't remember, Tala and Ramen, if you guys had a similar experience to this
I think
across your travels.
Yeah, I think like the biggest difference between Japan and Korea definitely is the accessibility of English. I think we kind of dipped our toes in about the accessibility part, but I think that's, from what I've heard, is the biggest difference. Is more people in Korea, I guess, understand English a lot more. There's a lot more English in like the things like to see, like boards, signboards and stuff. Like more of that, I guess, is in English, and it's more comprehensible. So you'd be able to understand and move around, even if you didn't have to ask people. Like,
is that mostly in the big cities, or is that, did you travel like outside of some bigger
Seoul,
cities?
The biggest cities is definitely more accessible, because from what I've like seen in shows and stuff, when you go outside of cities, it's pretty much just like your like village.
Countryside.
It's very countryside, very village, not many road signs. You have to travel by car anyways in those places, because there's no that public transport.
Or coach. Actually, the public transport for Korea is amazing, dude.
Oh no,
they have
coach,
bus terminals, right, that just go everywhere across the whole country.
No. What I'm saying is, when you go to the countryside, there's no trains that are getting you from A to B. You always have to get a bus. So a car is a lot more convenient in that sense, is like what I'm trying to say. But in terms of like English, I think from my experience, even if I didn't know the language, I'd probably be able to survive there for a couple weeks, even a month, with just English, because even if they don't speak it back to me, they know exactly what I'm telling them, and they'll be able to maneuver me around. Like the very first time that I went to Korea, it was when I was 18. I traveled the first time by myself, and I arrived there. I didn't have Wi-Fi. I didn't have a new SIM.
Damn, dude, that must have been a trip. Like your first solo trip, and you go to Korea and you don't speak Korean.
I had nothing. Like, I understood bits and bobs of Korean, and I had a like very, very basic Korean down, like how to say where to go and stuff like that, and point. Like, body language was mainly the thing that I was going off of. I didn't know that I needed to get like a Wi-Fi egg or like a SIM, because I was only going there for 2 weeks. It was just like a holiday, brand new place. My friends were already there. So my friends, when I met them afterwards, they were really worried because they couldn't get into contact with me. They didn't know how I arrived, because I had no access to Wi-Fi. With my SIM, with my British SIM, I couldn't get Wi-Fi at the airport. I had to wait until I went to the Airbnb to get Wi-Fi. And I didn't know that getting a taxi as a foreigner was a bad thing. Like getting
Why they ripped you off?
My thing was like 50,000 won, which is approximately 50 quid. when
Bro, it was more expensive in Japan, man.
it would have cost me
I paid
less.
70
It
quid,
would have
bro.
cost me less than. It would have probably cost me around £5 if I had taken the train.
Oh, mad.
So I didn't know that, and
Yeah,
I had
Yeah.
the cash on me, so I was like, no, you know what, 50,000 is nothing compared to like
Yeah, 50 quid's like a black
yeah, it's
cab,
like
fine.
it's not that bad. It was like an hour journey, so like comparatively to here, it's not as bad, but it's not
Yeah, I feel like
recommended.
an hour in a black cab here would be more than,
Oh,
it'd
it
be
would
like
be
£100,
something
man.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I was told afterwards, like, you made a mistake of taking a cab, and I
Yeah.
took the cab that was more like that would 100% rip me off, not the ones that are inside the city, which are less likely to rip you off. They charge you more of a
Yeah.
regular Korean price.
So I actually got ripped off quite bad as well.
Yeah.
Mine
Oh,
was
what?
around
In
like
Korea or
in
Japan?
Korea. Mine was like
Okay.
£80. It was
God
like
Oh,
damn.
man.
Yeah,
Even
80
more
or
than me.
90,000 won, right? But I see why the guy ripped me off, okay?
Okay.
Why?
Because this was on my last day, right, in Korea.
Oh no.
My flight was at like 11 a.m. and I woke up at like 9:30.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh,
I
big
hadn't even
mistake.
finished packing properly,
Oh
and I
no.
was
Yeah.
staying in like a hotel near Apgujeong, this area. Okay, so I think
Expensive area.
yeah, because I've stayed in different areas of Korea.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've stayed in like the cheap areas, cheap dorms, cheap Airbnbs, mid-range Airbnbs, and then like a decent hotel as well.
And the man went for the fancy,
Yeah, so
high class.
so that time, right, I was basically so fucking late, and I checked the train times, and I told the lady downstairs I need to get to the airport. Well, what's the fastest way, right? And she was just like, honestly,
Yeah.
I'll just get you a cab from outside. It'll get you there
Yeah.
in an hour.
Okay.
So my man came, right? Like I saw him. He was in one of these like yellow taxis, right? Put my
Yeah.
suitcase in. I said to him, "I'm going to the airport," and he just had a smile on his face, right?
Yeah.
And then honestly, he was speeding so fucking fast, right? Because I told
Yeah.
him I need to get it there by like 11:15. And on
Your flight's at 11:30, bro.
yeah, it was one of those
That's
times,
so
right?
bad.
But you got to check in, you got to
15
do this,
minutes
you got
to
to do
check
that,
in.
Yeah.
right?
Add
And
to
this guy,
security. God
yeah,
damn.
he's like speeding like crazy. Okay, and I'm in the back with like a suitcase to my left, and I'm just like
Flying
rocking
around.
around in the back like it's a fucking circus. And I was like, I don't care. I'll pay this man anything. Just get me on that flight.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
and
so
then luckily I
jokes.
still had money left over, so I hadn't really
Yeah.
used it. And he was like 80,000 won. I was like, here, mate, just fucking take it. I don't care if I'm getting ripped. Just take it. I'm
You
catching my
deserve
flight.
it.
You got me here. Just take it, dude.
One thing,
Soul drift.
I guess two things to definitely take away from that if you're traveling to Korea for the very first time is the first thing you gotta do is get the SIM or a Wi-Fi egg.
Same for Japan,
They're
man.
available on the airport, and everybody in the airport speaks English. Like if you go to a counter, even if you know Korean, they don't know that you know Korean, so they'll start speaking to you in English. Second thing to do is go to a convenience store, get a T-Money card. It's available. You just buy it, you top it up, and take the train.
Yeah.
Never take a yellow cab in Korea.
Here's a tip as well. It's the same in Japan. So as soon as you
Yeah,
arrive
same
in
in
the
Japan.
airport, where I arrived in Haneda, right? Just go up to the little machines, and it should have like a sign. I think it's Suica or something, right?
Yes, there's a
Yeah.
Suica card.
And
There's another type of
They'll
card.
help you get it there. In Korea, when I landed in Incheon, before you get on the train, just go to the train straight away. There's like a G25, which is kind of like their version of 7-Eleven, is a convenience store. Just go in there and just be like, I want a travel card, and they'll literally just give it to you, topped up as well, and you can just get on the train directly into Central Seoul.
Yeah, for foreigners I don't know about the taxi situation in Japan, but never get a yellow cab in Korea because they're the ones that overcharge the foreigners. The silver cabs, which are just the regular cabs, they will never overcharge. They charge the same price for everybody, regardless of whether you're a foreigner or Korean or whatnot. It's the yellow cabs that are like dangerous for foreigners.
I'm pretty
Always.
sure, yeah, that guy who took me to the airport, he turned the meter off.
Oh,
Probably.
my meter was
He was
off.
just like, off, mate.
Yeah.
We're
My
getting
meter
one
was
way.
off because I saw and I couldn't see the thing going off. So I was like, you know what, fuck it. I've got enough money. I've got enough saved up. Even if it's 100 quid, I'll pay for it because I don't know shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like when
Yeah.
I arrived, I was also lost. I couldn't find the Airbnb. Like I stood, it was in like this inside the side roads. There was like mini shops everywhere. There was a barber just in front of the Airbnb, right? So I'm like looking around. I'm trying to find on like City Mapper, where the hell is this fucking place? I can't find it.
Yeah.
The one thing that really struck me was these guys were just chatting in the barbers, like this lady and
Yeah.
the barber. They were just like, or they were chatting. They saw me confused. They came up to me and they were like, "How can we help you?" I've never had that here, ever. Like
Yeah.
living in London for the last like 12 years. I've never ever had someone approach me and be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you look a bit confused. How can I help
I'm
you?"
not gonna lie. Most people are probably happy that someone's confused. They probably just want to watch them walk around
Yeah.
aimlessly for 20
Exactly.
minutes.
And the thing is, it's
People here are so
true.
cynical.
It looks funny, right? And
Yeah.
like I will, I've had the opportunity to help some people out here that I know that they don't live here. They're clearly confused, and it's
Yeah.
like I feel compassionate, so I'm just like, you know what? Let me help out. I know the area fairly well. Other people would
Yeah.
just like look. They wouldn't even look up because everyone's so attached to their phones or to their own little conversations in
Yeah, I
London
think
that
it's
it
part of the
wouldn't matter.
culture as well. Like British
Yeah.
people, they're less talkative. They're much more reserved,
Yeah.
especially on public transport or in those areas.
Yeah.
But one thing that I wanted to kind of compare, right, was between the language skills of Japanese and Korean. Like in terms of if I was going there, I think we've highlighted the difference where it'll probably be easier to go to Korea than Japan, and I think one part of
Well,
that.
just for speaking English, but I think because of the Olympics, Tokyo has become a lot more English friendly, and they've got a lot of. I don't know if we talked about this last week, but cash as well. We can compare that later on.
Oh,
I don't
right.
want to
Yeah, yeah.
lose your train of thought, but I think um, now if you go to Tokyo, there's a lot more English than even 2 years ago when we went, or last year when we went, because
Yeah.
they've been teaching shop
It'll be
staff
Yeah, I
everywhere.
think
I'd
it'll be
assume.
interesting to see when we go, like
Yeah.
potentially end of this year, next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to my train of thought, right? I think one of the reasons why it's easier to get around with English in Korea is a lot of the young people there, and the people who are kind of trying to get jobs. Some of the job requirements is to be able to speak English and have like a decent level of English ability.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would be the
No,
case
it's not
in
in
So
Japan.
Japan.
Not
yeah.
at all.
So
It's the complete opposite. It's Japanese skills.
yeah. In
Exactly.
what happens in Korea is you know in high school we've got English, maths, and science, right? But that's only for GCSE and A level. We get to pick whatever. They've got the American system where you get taught everything, and even up until
Yeah.
they're like year 13, they're doing everything.
Yeah.
English,
Yeah,
math,
you do
science, like the
everything, yeah.
whole shebang, right?
Terrible, man. I hate
And
it.
they've got this thing where they have their English tests, but it's not practical English. It's memorize the answers and
Yeah.
get the results. That's what a lot of big companies look at, your like final end of year exam and what like points you got for your English test, even if it's
Yeah.
not applicable in real life for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
It's
seen some of
similar.
the English
It's
like
probably
test questions.
it's
Like
the
that's not even
worst.
normal English you'd be using on a day-to-day
It
basis.
makes no sense, and it
Yeah.
doesn't help with like real life face to face, like
It's like
speaking English.
1900s, like old Charles Dickens English.
But that's just the way it is in Korea.
It's funny though because it's similar in Japan where they have to learn English throughout school. I think until they're 15 or 14 or something. There's a point where you can stop learning it if you want to.
Right.
But I feel like it's the same thing where it's very much memorization based, and not everyone is interested in learning English.
Yeah.
So most people you speak to will know a few words, even if they're like you're out in the boonies.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone speaks Japanese. There's not a drop of English anywhere. Some people should understand some basic
Oh,
words
for sure,
because
for
they
sure.
had to learn it as children.
Yeah.
But I think that there's outside of Tokyo, especially like Kyoto was still pretty good. But I think the smaller cities like Kanazawa, etc., and Nara as well. Even though they do get some tourism, they're not made for it.
Yeah.
So I think you get by in Tokyo, no problem.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Even when I was going into places, most places, unless they're tiny family-run businesses, will have like an English menu, or they'll try and tell you buzzwords like spicy or whatever. But when you guys were talking about the cabs, I was gonna say the Tokyo cabs aren't rip-offs. They're just hella expensive.
They're just regular
So
flat
that's
rate.
a good thing I think about Japan. And it's like you were saying, when people see that you're confused, like most people would come up to me, even though they didn't speak English, they spoke Japanese, they would still like, if I looked confused as hell and I was like looking for something, I just showed them. I think I was in Kyoto and I was trying to find the entrance to the bamboo gardens, and we were in like the shrine next to it, and the guy just like looked at my pamphlet for the bamboo gardens and was like, up, left, right, like just showed me how to get there. And most people, I think, are quite honest.
That's a really nice thing about it. Yeah,
I think we spoke about this before as well when we were talking about the Great Pretender inspiration guy, the one that was robbing people.
Oh,
when
right.
we said
Yeah,
Japanese people are very trusting in
Yeah.
general. It's like obviously a wild generalization, but I think from being there, most people were super nice and accommodating. I didn't really meet anyone that was like,
yeah.
dirty
That's
foreigner.
definitely the same, I would say, in Korea, because before going there, I would never leave anything lying around of my personal belongings in a
Yeah.
coffee shop, in a McDonald's, to go to the toilet. Like,
Yeah.
never, ever.
Yeah.
I'd like finish my food, hold everything in, pack everything up, even my bag,
Yeah.
and then go to the toilet. I would never leave anything lying around,
Yeah,
ever.
for sure.
But in Korea, you could leave your laptop, you could leave your expensive $1,000, like £1,000 Mac on the table in a coffee shop, go out for lunch, and then come back, your shit's still there.
Yeah.
What's funny is I felt the same way. So I was like, oh, everyone's just leaving their stuff, and then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not worried about leaving my stuff on this table and going to the bathroom because of Japanese people. I'm worried about leaving the stuff on the table for a different foreigner that walks
Exactly.
by and finds the stuff.
Because they won't be
So I
able to
was like,
tell
I'm
the
not even-
difference, right? They'll just be like,
Yeah.
this foreigner must be the owner because there was another foreigner who was also sitting here. They'll just be like, the foreigner's back to pick up his stuff. They won't necessarily tell the
But
difference.
I was just like some like other guy from London's finna walk by,
Trust.
see my camera on the table, just take it, even if he doesn't want a camera.
No one will know. No one will ever know. Because
Yeah.
they'll just be like, the
The funny
foreigner's
thing-
back.
The other funny comparison I wanted to ask you about is like the only time I've really seen like tourists or other travelers talking about being ripped off. I didn't know this when I went to Japan, but Tala, you talked to me about this, and it's renting with Airbnbs. So no matter how trustworthy the majority of people are, like it seems that there's a big Airbnb scam that happens especially in Tokyo with foreigners
Shit.
renting Airbnbs, and then they turn up and they can't stay there because I think
So-
correct me if I'm wrong, Tala, but it's like Airbnbs aren't legal
No, they're not.
to stay in, I don't think.
Yeah, so the government
Technically.
legislation, right, in Japan is always changing. And for the most part, it's been anti-Airbnb. You can't really rent out your place. And a lot of these Japanese listings, what they'll essentially do is post it on Airbnb. You pay the money, and then a day before you arrive, they'll pull it, right, and be like, we can't do it anymore. Or even at the
Damn.
point of booking, they'll say something like, oh yeah, how about you just pay us the money and don't book it through here? Can you just book
Wow.
like these other dates, or it's guaranteed, whatever. But it's very, very stressful when you're booking like accommodation and you're traveling like 12 hours, like from either UK or Europe area, all the way there, and to have your accommodation like be fucked up or not what you expect or be absolutely rinsed, so it's not what you want.
Yeah.
So in terms of Airbnb, I think that brings us to the topic of accommodation and how
yeah.
we did our Japan trip and Korea trip.
Yeah.
So in Japan, I decided to stay in a business hotel instead of
Yeah.
an
Super
Airbnb.
good.
So
Yeah.
one thing that I was looking at as well was obviously price. Everything in fucking Tokyo is expensive to stay in.
Oh,
right?
damn, man.
If you want it in a decent location, right, it's going to be
Yeah.
fucking horrendous. And
Wow.
there's a lot of good Airbnbs around there. Like you find them, but I was just hearing so
You
many
don't
bad
know.
reviews.
You just don't know.
Yeah, so much bad
Yeah.
hype around Airbnb in Japan. People getting cancelled. Just like not really great new stuff. So I thought I don't want a normal hotel because those are fucked. So we stayed in a business hotel.
Yeah.
So in Japan, it's they have a culture of business hotels. So a lot of people who travel around the country for business, they stay in these hotels, and per night it can be around,
And they're usually quite cheap.
like it can be like 30-40 pound
Oh, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
per
shit.
night, and you'll have like
Yeah,
a decent
basically,
size.
I'd say that they're comparable to staying in like a Premier Inn or something, but they're usually a little bit nicer because I feel like, Premier Inn's not bad. Premier Inns are pretty good, but it's like, I don't know. what's the other one? Travelodge.
Travelodge,
In the
Holiday
UK, I
Inn.
think that's probably comparable, but I think that they're not too expensive at all. They're usually probably the cheapest hotels that you can stay in, other than staying in a hostel.
And
Right,
So
yeah.
if you don't want to stay in a hostel or a capsule hotel, you can stay in a business hotel.
so
And they're usually right next to stations as well.
yeah,
So you usually get like a really good location.
yeah,
And they also normally come with breakfast.
yeah. That
I
was
see.
the thing that I was going to point out, is that they're very good in terms of locations. The one that I stayed
Yeah,
in
always.
was near Akihabara, and
Oh,
it
cool.
was literally like 10 minutes walk away from it, and it was near the stations and everything. And I actually have a story of the hotel staff. So
Yeah.
first off, they were like, honestly, the nicest people I've ever met. These hotel staff, right? They treated me
They're
like
so
family.
nice. Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and like I think I said this in last week's pod episode, but when I was traveling to Tokyo, I was traveling from Korea, right, and I was sick. I wasn't really feeling well.
Oh,
So
you didn't say that.
no, I did.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
I know
Did
the
he?
story
Yeah.
behind it, but yeah.
Yeah, like I wasn't really feeling too well when I was
Okay.
landing there. Like, remember it was an early morning flight, and
Yeah.
I looked like shit. I wasn't feeling well, and then
Oh
then
yeah,
my bag got
I
searched.
remember now. I
Yeah.
remember.
And basically, I got to the hotel, right? I checked
Yeah.
in, and the first night, right, I had fucking fevers. Okay, I was like sweating it
wow.
out, and
Yeah.
I decided just that whole day, the first day I got there, I'm just gonna chill inside the hotel because I couldn't even move
Okay.
properly. I was like banging headache. Like my arm was a bit numb. I was like, what the
Damn,
fuck's
that
going
sucks.
on, right? And then that night, okay, I went downstairs to the hotel lobby, and they could tell I looked fucked. Okay, so it wasn't the night; it was in the morning. Okay, because I waited it out. Okay, it was in
Yeah.
the morning,
Yeah.
and then I said to them, "Oh yeah, I'm not really feeling too well." So I actually Google translated it. Okay,
Yeah.
and the way that in the UK we say like a cold, flu, right?
Yeah.
We just say, "Oh yeah, I have a cold, I have a flu."
Yeah.
So when I translated it to into Japanese, it was like
Oh god, they thought that you were cold.
they they thought like the way it translated was influenza, right? And I was like,
Goddamn.
what
Oh,
the fuck?
God.
Isn't that some real strong shit? But I think that's just the normal way that they handle it. So I was like Google translating this really dodgy symptoms,
Man's got swine
Yeah.
flu.
God damn.
and it was
Boy.
like influenza, and I was like desu or whatever, like Japanese that I was
Yeah.
like trying to speak, right?
Yeah.
And then the lady was like, "Oh my gosh!" I thought she was about to cry. Okay,
Yeah.
and she was just like so like open to me, like in terms of wanting to
Yeah.
help me, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, just wait here 1 second." And I said to them, "Pharmacy, yeah." And some old geezer pops up from behind, like in one of their rooms, right? He's got a suit on. He comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, you want to go pharmacy?" I was like, "Yeah." And then mine gets a paper and a pen, and he starts drawing me a map.
Yo,
Okay.
I've seen that happen on
Yeah.
like shows before. I found that so odd. They draw you out a map. They don't
Yeah,
even tell
yeah.
you go
Yeah.
this way. They actually draw you out, and I've not seen that in Korea once.
Yeah, yeah. Like
It's
he
crazy.
literally started drawing it, and then the pharmacy I needed to go to was called a Ichigo pharmacy. So
Strawberry
Ichigo is
pharmacy.
basically a strawberry, right? So he drew like a strawberry on the map,
Nice.
okay? And he was like, this way, that way, this way. And I was like, wow, this man doesn't even use Google Maps. He's giving this to me. I feel so like grateful. This is like a quest, right? He's sending me on a quest. It's my first quest in Japan, right?
God
So at this point, I was just
damn.
like literally about to collapse here. I was like, thank you, right? And then I basically went out looking for this fucking pharmacy.
Pharmacy, yeah.
His directions were on point. I arrived in there, and I got some like really fucking strong meds from the guy inside. So
Yeah.
basically, in the UK, when we get antibiotics, right, we get a 1 week course, right?
Yeah.
So this was a 1 week course, but in 2 days.
Wow.
Damn,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
That's some
Yeah,
strong
I
shit.
saw the amount of like percentages, and like she said you only need to take it 2 days, maybe 3 days, and I took it, and I swear to God I was fucking high, right? And then
Great.
I was like, I
Great
took
side
it right,
effects.
and my head was like spinning, and I was just like seeing shit. Okay,
Yeah.
And I hadn't even properly taken the trains yet, and the trains is another
Yeah.
whole fuckery, right? Like the way that
Yeah.
you have to read the map. And my mate, right, Stevie, and a few others, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going out to Shibuya tonight. You coming?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "I might as well, right?
Yeah.
It's my travel. I can't just stay in my in my hotel the whole time." So there began my psychedelic trip on the trains for the first time, trying to get to Shibuya. And then when I got to Shibuya, I got lost in the station because it was so
Yeah.
fucking big.
Yeah. Big
And
station.
I was seeing like hallucinations and shit, and just like mad hot everywhere. I was just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I managed to meet up with them in front of the Hachiko statue. So yeah.
Oh, bro, I have a funny picture of me and my girlfriend at the Hachiko statue. Basically, we were I wanted to go see it while I was meeting a family friend, and she tried to take a picture of me, and there were so many people taking pictures that really you get like one chance. And she took the picture, and there were like three flashes that went off at the same time. So the picture of me and my girlfriend is like the most cursed image. You basically can just see like our eyes on our mouths, and then our face is just like completely white, and then the Hachiko statue is just next to
Yeah.
us, and it's such a bad
Oh,
picture.
I remember, right? I had a Hachiko statue. The
Yeah.
people form a fucking line.
Yeah, they form a line
Yeah,
to take a picture.
Roman, they form a
Is this-
line to
is this
take a
some
picture,
famous
and
statue
everybody
then?
gets to turn. In the
Yeah.
UK, this wouldn't fucking happen. It'd be a fucking mob.
Nah, people would just be climbing. People's kids would be climbing on the dog.
And they'd
Good
stay like
lord.
literally fucking just an hour just to get the perfect picture. Here it was just like
Yeah.
take 2-3 pictures, 20 seconds, move on, and everybody kind of respected that rule. It was just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
God damn, that's.
But yeah, I think
some
in
next
terms of
level shit.
accommodation, I didn't really do too much Airbnb in Japan. I just
Okay.
heard a lot of shit.
So when I went, obviously, I didn't know about the Airbnb situation, so I only stayed in Airbnbs, and we stayed in one ryokan in Kyoto, which was really cool.
Do you want to
and I really
explain what a
recommend doing.
ryokan is?
Yeah, so a ryokan is basically a traditional Japanese like inn.
Okay.
And if you watch anime or whatever, you know the sliding paper doors and,
That's where
and
I
that
wanna
type
stay.
of that type of old Edo style architectural vibe. That's what ryokans are they kind of look like that because they're styled to look like a traditional ryokan from back in the
Right,
day.
yeah.
You can obviously get like more updated ones, but I wanted to stay in one where we slept on tatami mats and whatever.
Sounds so cool.
Because I wanted to experience that weeb
the
weeb situation.
The weep fantasy.
But yeah, when we were in Tokyo, I've mentioned this so many times, but we stayed in Teitoku, and we stayed in an Airbnb there, and I think it was like my girlfriend's mum booked all of the hotels, and she contacted all the Airbnb people ahead of time, and she spoke to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I think that probably helped because she vetted out ones that were like standoffish or a bit weird.
Right.
And she only booked ones where she had like a proper conversation with the person who had the Airbnb. So I think it also helped that we were booking for like 6 people because it's kind of hard to take a booking for like 6 people and then cancel it, or 5 people and then cancel it.
Yeah.
Rather than like one person who's staying in a flat, it's pretty easy to just be like booking 1 people, but you're not going to get that many families, like whole families going to one Airbnb. So that probably also weeded out more scammy Airbnb situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we were there, it was really easy, to be honest. And all the Airbnb places that we stayed in were super helpful. They had so many signs in English explaining how to do things. The funny thing as well is that all of them said, please do not throw away the rubbish, because they have a big situation in Japan with sorting their bins. And this is why a lot of foreigners can't rent accommodation, because Japanese people don't think that the foreigner who's renting will sort their bins correctly.
Right.
Like paper goes in here, cardboard goes in here, plastic goes in here, cans go in here, this like aluminum foil goes in here.
Yeah.
And basically they've got like 10 bins sometimes where it's so meticulously sorted that if you don't do it, you get a massive fine.
Right, yeah.
So all of them just said, put all your rubbish in the same bin and just do not take it outside. Just leave the bin. If the bin gets full, message us in Airbnb. We will come and take the bin bag and give you a new bin bag.
Damn.
So all of the places we stayed in were like that, which was kind of funny. And also the other thing that I noticed is that we didn't have a microwave in any of the places. They were all toaster ovens, which I love because I love toaster ovens. But every single place we stayed in didn't have a microwave. It just had
what's a
toaster
toaster oven?
So a toaster oven, I used to have one when I lived
It's a
in
2-in-1.
Qatar, but basically it's like, it looks like a microwave,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but usually it opens top down
Yeah.
instead of sideways. And inside is like, it's basically a 2-layered tiny oven.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it works a similar way to an oven and a toaster.
Mm-hmm.
So you can toast bread in it, and it will toast the bread on both sides, or you can put a little like baking tray in and use it like an oven, and it will heat it with a fan
Yeah.
and
We
like heat it up as if it's an oven.
we used
Okay.
to have one
So
here in the UK
yeah,
actually.
they didn't have toasters either. They just like they solved both issues by just giving everyone a toaster oven. There was no microwaves, there was no
For a
toasters,
couple of years,
because I don't have to buy two appliances.
for a couple of years here, we didn't have a microwave in our house. We just had a toaster oven.
Bro, I don't have a microwave. Toaster ovens are so much better.
Yeah.
And after being there, I was like, it makes better toast than a toaster because it gets so
It gets it crisp.
crisp. And that's another thing about Japan. If you want, like, don't go there expecting good bread. If you want brown bread and like that type
Oh
of thing, but
my
their white bread,
God.
they have like this milk bread, and I'm not joking. I had a piece of bread that was 2 inches thick.
Bro,
I just
don't
bought
even
it in
get
a
me
cambini,
started.
and it was 2 inches straight up. It looked like half a loaf of bread, and I took a knife myself and I just cut it in half to make 2 slices of bread.
Do not.
And I remember distinctly, like randomly in the Airbnb, there was a bunch of peanut butter that wasn't opened. So I just opened the peanut butter and I had like literally the best peanut butter and jelly toasted sandwich I had in my whole life in Japan, which I didn't expect to happen. And now when I planned my the second trip that I was supposed to go on, I literally found a bakery in Tokyo I think it was called Pelican Bakery, and it specialized in this thick ass bread that I bought in the Cambini. And I was like, guys, I don't care what we do. One day I'm going to get that thick bread again. It's the best bread. So if you go, I recommend just try the thick white bread.
Oh, damn.
It will just be
Okay.
like one slice in a packet. Just go and buy it.
Yeah, don't get me started on bread.
Yeah, but yeah, like brown bread and stuff, like you're not gonna get that. You're not
For-
really gonna
I
get
some-
don't think they've
You can get
figured out
baguettes
how
and
to
whatever
do
because
bread.
they like French baking. There's a lot of French bakeries, but I feel like whenever you get something, it's always the flavor isn't really what you expect.
It's overly sweet
So-
most of the time.
That's just,
Yeah, so when we were in Kyoto, me and my girlfriend found a French Japanese bakery, and I think funnily enough it was called like German bakery, but it was all French stuff. It was really funny, but yeah, we got a bunch of things. And I remember I thought I got like a Danish, like a cinnamon Danish, like a pain au raisin,
Yeah.
and it tasted like banana. And I was just so confused
banana
because it was
raisin?
like it looked like a Danish with the raisins
Yeah.
in it and everything. The whole thing just tasted like banana.
That's
So there were
jokes.
some interesting things happening
Yeah.
with the bakeries there, but they're good.
I feel like that's like in terms of like bakeries and stuff. That's one of the things that's similar to Korea, because they have like a lot of like bakeries, but I think the way they treat bread and stuff is not as a savory foods, because they don't have any savory bread at all. All
Yeah.
bread there is sweet. Everything that's bread related is a dessert.
Yeah.
For Koreans.
And ramen, I think you remember there's a bakery called Paris Baguette.
Yeah, they
So
have a
it's,
Paris. They have a thing
themed-
called Paris Baguette.
Yeah, Paris themed bakery that does sweet bread.
They do not sell anything remotely close to Paris or baguettes. Everything is very fusion. Like they have these kimchi bread things. They've got like a whole bunch of like very random like very new like dishes.
Yeah.
But they're pretty good. Like I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie,
I
they're
remember.
really good.
Yeah, I remember I got a loaf of bread from there, and inside the loaf of bread was cream and
Yeah.
vanilla.
It's
And there was chocolate flavored ones. There was like so much random stuff that you could get inside of bread.
yeah.
Yo, melon pan in Japan slaps, bro. You get this like melon cream in the bread. It's so good.
Yeah.
I would say it's one of the things that kind of is like a pet peeve for me, not having proper bread in those countries.
It's such a British
It's
thing.
yeah, like
such a
I
European
have
thing.
I love bread. Like I love my regular bread that we have here that I can spread Nutella. Like I wouldn't want a sweet bread and
Yeah.
then put Nutella on top of that, because that would just ruin the whole taste
Yeah, too
for
sweet.
me. It's really difficult.
Because for us, I feel like bread is the main carb that we
Yeah.
have, and then for them
Right,
it's rice.
exactly.
So it's a complete
It's
opposite.
really, really difficult to find savory bread in
Yeah.
Korea.
Actually, this might be a bit TMI, but when this is actually a very common thing for people that travel to Japan. I don't know if it's the same for Korea, and I don't know if you guys experience this.
Yeah.
But most people who go there, myself included, get like extremely constipated in the first few days that you're there, because you're changing your diet so
Oh.
much. Because usually you're not going to go there realistically speaking and eat all of the food that you normally eat unless you're a boring person.
Yeah.
And if you're that boring, you're probably not listening to this podcast. But if you're the type of person to go there and like buy British or like Kellogg's cereal and milk, like just turn off. But most people are going to go there and try and live life that other people are living there. Like you're going to have rice and some type of fish or savory thing for breakfast probably.
Yeah.
So for me, I was eating like I remember distinctly going to the Yamazaki Mart in Taito, which was my favorite supermarket, 24/7. But I remember going there, and in the morning they make a lot of the like bento boxes and other lunches for the day. I bought a lunch, but I ate it for breakfast every day that we were in Tokyo. And I remember that like obviously that's rice and meat usually, because I didn't realize this, but you eat vegetables, but usually as a side dish, or you order it separately, or you have to order a vegetarian meal and then order chicken or some type of meat. They don't really, not everything comes together. And so I kept ordering things, being like expecting some type of vegetable to show up, and it never did. And then at that point, you don't want to wait for someone to cook vegetables for you. So I just didn't really understand how to order food correctly. So I kept eating just rice and meat for like 3 days straight. And at that point, I was like, bro, I just need to go and find like some figs or something just so I can go take a dump. Like, it was so difficult because my body was already shocked. And then it was just all carbs.
Yeah, to be honest, I just ate a lot when I got there. So I didn't really have any problems. Plenty of coffee, right? So coffee helps it
If
down.
you have ramen has vegetables in it. That's like one thing that always comes with some type of vegetable. So if you ate ramen a lot, you'd be fine.
Yeah, I've never had that kind of problem, I guess, like
and to be
traveling
honest,
anywhere.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Russ, in the 7-Elevens in Tokyo, right, in Japan, right, they have plenty of sandwiches, like normal sandwiches. Like there's the eggs.
Sandwiches are so good.
Yeah, the egg sandwich
but again,
is
it's
amazing.
it's like bread and usually meat. You're probably not gonna get like a vegetarian sandwich necessarily, or like a vegetable sandwich. So I feel like that's maybe a key consideration if you're traveling. Like either bring figs. Like I literally bought figs when I thought I was going, and then Corona cancelled it. I bought dried figs to bring. So I feel like it's good to eat, to like definitely make sure that you're ordering the side dishes. Like make sure you order some vegetables. If you're just eating like meatballs, you're not gonna use a bathroom.
Yeah, I think have plenty of coffee. It should be fine. But apart from food, right, Ramen, when you went to Korea, how was the accommodation like?
Yeah, so like on the contrary, like opposite to what Tala's done, because he's lived in hotels and in like Airbnbs, right? When you went to Korea,
cheap Airbnbs, hotels, whatever.
For me, it was all 3 times that I've went, they were all Airbnbs. So they're not exactly legal. They don't have that system of like, oh yeah, you can do Airbnb as like a business. If you get caught, I think you'd get fined for it. Like I would get fined for it, and also probably the person who owns the property would get fined for it, because they've got I guess they've got like a really set rule of like property laws and stuff like that, because they have these weird like high prices for keychain kind of thing, deposit, and then rent money. It's a weird complicated system, but it is pretty easy to get Airbnb still. Like, and it's pretty fair to use, and they're very, very nice. You can get private rooms, or you can get like a whole place to yourself. So like the first time that I went, me and my friends, we got like private, like 2 sets of rooms. The second time I went with Stevie for a month, we got a room. And then the last time that I went it was 2018, right? Yeah, 2019.
2019.
When we all went, we got like a whole like downstairs to ourselves. And it was like 3 bunk beds, and it was the whole living room to ourselves, the kitchen to ourselves. There were other people, there were other people that were staying upstairs, which was a whole like separate listing for that one house.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, it's very, very convenient, and you're able to get it. And I don't think people get caught because the government, I don't think, gives too much about it, because I haven't heard any stories of people yet being caught.
So I think they play around it. So if I quickly just talk about my experience, right? So the first time I went, I stayed in a very, very cheap dormitory, Okay, so the dormitory I stayed in was near Hongdae, which is more of a student area. So the prices were so fucking dirt cheap. I think I paid like
Yeah.
£14 per night. Okay,
Oh,
and
mad.
equally, I got the quality that was £14 a night. So it was
Oh,
a
right,
very
right.
small room. It had a shower
Yeah.
and a toilet. The shower was on top of the toilet, and it was literally just like one bed to the left hand side. And because it was a
Yeah.
dormitory, if I walked outside of my room, there'd be like a row of doors, and
Yeah. So it was like literally a uni dorm.
yeah, kind of
I've
like a
not
uni dorm.
experienced
And
that,
what I
no.
didn't realize is the one that I chose was all females. So there
Okay.
was just when I went to the kitchen, it was just all females. But it
How did
wasn't
you?
gender specific. But the people staying there was just all
Oh, it
women.
just happened to be all women.
Oh,
It
okay.
was
Yeah.
like,
Just happened to
oh,
be.
okay. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
so the-
So
weird.
Tyler was probably rubbing his hands.
He
man.
was
No
like,
way.
yes.
But like when I spoke to them, they were all kind of students, international students, studying for 2 to 3 months or whatever. And the lady who ran it was very, very nice. She remembered me. She would give me advice. She gave me like extra blankets and all this kind of shit. She was really cool. And then half the time, because I didn't really like the room or anything, my
Yeah.
friend, he was like, yeah, you should stay with me, right? So I stayed at his house for quite a while,
Yeah.
and he lives in a really nice house in a nice area. So half the
Yeah.
time I wasn't even in the Airbnb. One time she called me and she was like, oh, are you not staying there anymore? So I didn't want to tell her
Lol.
that is shit.
Oh
Right, so I was
no.
just like, oh yeah, I'm just staying with my friends sometimes. I just like trying to make it sound nice.
You could have
And
just
then
been like
Yeah.
you were traveling,
Yeah.
easiest option. You don't even need to
Yeah.
say. You could just be like, oh, I was
How
going
long
to
were you
different
there
places.
for you to be bumping into this woman and all that?
I think
type
it
of
was like
thing?
a week and a half. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Short
then
time.
basically, because that wasn't really a good experience in terms of accommodation, I was like, okay, next time I come, I'm going to get like a
But is it just because
medium.
you're picky, or was it actually not
No,
good?
it wasn't good. Dude, it was 13,
Okay.
14 pound per night.
Yeah, but for
Oh,
£14,
It's a
like
I'll
you'd,
send you a
student
you'd
dorm.
picture.
expect that
I'll
you'd
send
just
you a
go
picture.
there.
Dude, you wouldn't even
So,
fit
send
in
me a
the room,
picture.
right?
No, but I mean, if I'm paying £14, I'm gonna assume that I'm gonna literally go there, pass out,
I th-
wake up the next morning, and leave. Like, spend absolutely no time
I
in
think
there.
the
Yeah, yeah.
reason why you probably felt like it was a bad experience because you haven't had any experience, nor did you have the information of what the student dorms are like in Korea. They are tiny. I've seen
Yeah,
videos
yeah.
upon videos. Like they're cheap, but they are like they're tinier than my room right now, and I believe that my room is tiny.
Yeah.
Like I
Okay.
wouldn't be able to stretch my leg, kind of
Yeah, maybe I couldn't
size.
fit.
Like
No,
yeah,
no way,
exactly.
dude.
Like
You wouldn't have
they're
fit.
that small. But
Right.
they're convenient enough for students because students don't get paid as much when they're doing part-time
Yeah.
work. Like
Yeah.
the kind of wage thing is a bit shitty, so it makes sense for students.
Yeah.
But like if you're
So
going there, yeah, it's not
yeah,
that
so I
great.
decided the next time I go, the second time, that I would stay in like a decent Airbnb and potentially
Okay.
I want to try out like a hotel. So the next time I went, I split my journey. Like half of it was in a decent Airbnb, and the other half, or like less than half, was basically in a hotel. So in the mid-range Airbnb, it was basically in these like new developed towers, and I'd get like the whole kind of apartment to myself. And
Yeah.
at first I was like, yeah, this is sick. It was a bit more. It was like I think 30 or 40 quid per night, right?
Still not bad.
And the guy gave me like a whole manual, and honestly, it's a really, really nice apartment and everything. And then he
Yeah.
goes to me, oh yeah, so this is how you're meant to get in. So the key for the actual dorm, right? It's in the mail room. So he
Yeah.
goes, you got to go in and you got to go to the mail room, but you got to avoid the security guard because he's going to see a foreigner with a suitcase. So he goes, maybe leave your suitcase somewhere, because then if he sees a foreigner with a suitcase, he knows that they've come to stay here, and it's basically
Yeah.
Koreans living here. So something's going on.
Oh
And if
shit!
they do ask you, who are you staying with, just say your friend, okay? And he goes like, nothing's going to go wrong. Just do as I say, right? Just follow these instructions.
Yeah.
So luckily one of my friends was in Korea already at that time. So I asked her, I was just like, oh, can we just meet before I go to my accommodation? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. So I just like met her in a cafe, told her that I need to go and get
Told her I need to leave my suitcase with you so I can get my keys.
exactly. I said to her, so I need to go and get the actual key card. and I can't take the suitcase, so can you just stay here for a while? She was like, yeah, it's fine. So I got her coffee and everything, and so I went down. I was like proper like fucking Mission Impossible, right? Like looking around the corners, trying to see where the CCTV cameras are.
Man was opening his phone camera, flipping it around, putting it around the corner,
Try-
making sure no one was there.
And then I got down to the mail room, right? And obviously the room number, you have like a pin to get into the mail room.
Yeah.
So then I tried it and it didn't work. Right? And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So I started panicking, right? And then I called the guy and he was like, oh no. What he couldn't remember what the pin was, but he goes, it's the first pin I sent you. I was like, oh shit, yeah, he sent me 2 pins. So I think he's changing it all the time, right? So I used the first pin. Luckily, got the pin, got the card. Met my friend, went to the accommodation, right, and smooth sailing from then on out. But it was still a bit like it's not
bit sus.
yeah, it's not like outright you can't do it, but it's a bit dodge, you know. It's a bit
weird.
It's a bit risky. It's a bit risky.
It's probably easier to just stay in a hotel.
It's really weird that you had to have a key card specifically, because I know that the last time that I went, obviously everything was number pads, so you just had codes.
Yeah, so it had a keypad and a number pad. So first you'd have to do the keypad, and then it would basically release the number pad.
Oh wow!
So it had like double security, because like the place I was staying in, it was mid-range, but it was like really really nice.
It was probably like a complex, like a neighborhood kind of thing. A lot of buildings together. Was this that kind of area?
It was a high rise, so it was like these two new.
It makes sense. It
buildings.
makes sense then for it to have double security. Because most of them are usually just keypad. You tap it and then you tap in the code.
I mean, ultimately, it's just because the dude didn't want to be involved with you at all, right? So he just leaves the key in the mailroom, and then the onus is on you to get it, and he's not
involved.
like in the firing line. He's not like giving you the key card and putting himself in.
Yeah. Because it's not allowed, I guess, and especially because it's like they have these rules of you have to buy the property or you need to rent it. You give a huge chunk of money as deposit, which is called their key card. So it's like it's a hassle to kind of if you get caught and shit like that. But yeah, it's a pretty good experience, I think. Airbnbs are a lot more smooth sailing in Korea in that sense.
And to be honest, when I stayed in the hotel, like hotels are hotels. Like I like hotels, but then there's something that just feels a bit fake with hotels for me. It's like everything's too perfect and too nice. Like obviously you're paying for a good service and you're getting it, but then I feel like I'm missing out on authentic culture, you know? And a lot of the hotels are always Western focused. So I try to stay more in Airbnbs because you get more of a genuine feeling of the area and you can live closer to the people. So the third time we all went, right? There was about 5 or 6 of us. We got an Airbnb in a really, really good location. I still remember it because I found it, right? It is so peng. And we had like the whole area, 10 minutes to the station. It was perfect location.
I ended up staying in 3 different Airbnbs that trip because I was the first one to arrive. So I went back to the Airbnb that me and Stevie stayed for a night because the lady knew me. So she was like, yeah, sure. Just like, you can stay for a night. They usually don't take for one night, but because she knew me and I was there for a month, she was like, yeah, sure. And then after that, Tala came. We moved into that big place. Then it was I think Stevie came, and the twins came as well. It was a really good place. And because I didn't want to pay for 5 people for just 2 extra nights, I was like, once everybody else is together, not staying in that place anymore, I moved in with another one of my friends who was also
that makes sense.
there, and he was like, yeah, if you're only here for 2 nights, it's fine. You can stay over for 2 nights. I was like, yeah.
So when I was planning my second trip with my brother, when we were looking for places to stay, obviously I was a bit more cautious about using Airbnbs the second time because I knew that it would be more likely to have a cancellation or something if it was less people.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't a family, I run that risk.
Right.
That other people faced. So when we were planning the Tokyo accommodation, I really wanted to try staying in a capsule hotel, even though I don't think I'm actually going to fit in the capsule. I don't think they're not longer than like 6 feet long in most cases. Man. So I don't think my feet would be out of the capsule. So I was like, as much as I want to stay in one and try it, I don't actually think it's physically possible unless I curl up in a small ball.
Right.
And I just don't sleep like that. So I was like, I'm going to probably just not sleep for a whole night. So I was like, maybe I'll leave one day open to try that. But for the most part, I think that what are they called? I said it before. Oh yeah, hostels. I think hostels are quite good in Tokyo, and they looked like on them. You can definitely find some disgusting ones. Like I found some super weird, gross-looking hostels that were run by foreigners for foreigners, and it was mostly like Australian backpackers and
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
They were super
God
dodgy
damn.
looking, like in really weird
God
areas.
damn.
But there's a lot of really really nice ones. And I found this one in Tokyo, and I think it might be quite common, where basically it was obviously they're kind of like rows of beds, and it's less privacy, but you can sometimes pay to get a little bit more privacy, and basically you'll have a bed or a double bed or a bunk bed, but then you get this cloth that you pull down over a small, so the beds are kind of in a small
Yeah,
room,
yeah.
and there's no protection, but basically you're in your own kind of room, and then you pull down this big curtain. So I think that's probably good to invest in, because some of the other hostels didn't have the privacy option. You're kind of just sleeping in an open bunk bed. So
yeah.
if you're into that,
I
go
remember
ahead.
when I was looking at accommodation for Tokyo specifically, there's a very
Hmm.
big kind of hostel culture going on there. They have
Yeah,
a lot of really cool ones, a lot of shit ones.
yeah,
But the
yeah.
really cool ones,
There's no in
yeah,
between. They're just really cool or really
yeah.
terrible.
And the really cool ones and the good ones, right? They're massively sold out. Like people have booked these
Yeah, yeah.
like a year in
We booked ours like
advance.
6 months in
Yeah.
advance, and there were already barely any rooms. Like we couldn't book an actual room with a door that you can lock. They were all sold out. So we got the room that had a curtain,
Yeah,
because like literally they were all booked out
Yeah. So
immediately.
I'd say when people are planning trips to Japan, right, and they want to stay in a bit more affordable,
Accommodation book
yeah,
early.
book it at least like 6 months early to a year
I'd say
early.
even before your flight,
Yeah.
like you're more likely to lose accommodation than to lose a flight to
Yeah.
Japan.
Start
right,
The
right.
researching.
accommodation, yeah.
Yeah. Start researching about like the different business hotels or the really good
I
hostels.
think business hotels are probably, if like you save money going in a hostel, and the reason we wanted a hostel is because we wanted to save a little bit of money in Tokyo, because we knew we would literally go back and sleep and wake up and leave.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we would never spend any time. But we booked business hotels in other cities, and obviously I stayed in the business hotel in Shinjuku, and it was an amazing experience. And it's obviously a bit more private. You have your own room. You usually get breakfast included, what have you. But I think something to think about is if you're just going to Tokyo. If I was just going to Tokyo, I wasn't going to any other city, I wasn't traveling around, I would book a business hotel. If I was traveling around, I would try and save as much money as possible in Tokyo, because you're realistically speaking going to be out all day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I would use that money to book something a bit more interesting in other areas. So Kyoto has a really big like ryokan culture, and there's a lot of ryokans there, and I think that they're really really nice. So when I was booking that, I was looking at ryokans, and I found one that had like a business sitting. It was a business ryokan, and
Oh,
basically it had like 4 beds in it, because we were going with two of our
yeah,
mates,
yeah.
and it had 4 separate beds. They were all in the room, and then it had a little raised platform where you could have a business meeting, and it
That's
had seats all around it, and it was the seats that you see, or it's like very traditional anime where you sit with your legs tucked
yeah,
under,
yeah, yeah.
and it's like a seat to be seated at on the floor. So it was like a floor seat,
So
and it
cool.
was really really cool. It had a balcony and everything, and it wasn't much more expensive than any other like normal ryokan, but we could budget it because we saved the money in Tokyo to spend a bit more in Kyoto.
Right, right.
And I think Kyoto doesn't get a lot of flack for it, but it's quite expensive as a city. Like honestly, I think that like a lot of there's the hotels, in my opinion, were more expensive in Kyoto than they were in Tokyo, at least when I was booking it.
Wow.
And I found that unless you wanted to stay in something really crappy, it was better to just save a bit of money in Tokyo and spend a bit more in Kyoto for the accommodation.
Mhm.
But then there's other cities, like I wanted to go to Sendai this time. Sendai had a lack of hotels, to be honest with
Oh,
you.
wow.
I
Okay.
I was like, it's going to be an Airbnb in that city specifically,
Right.
and it's a city that's a bit more north, and it's a bit less touristy, but it has a lot of really cool culture, and I recommend looking at it if you're going. But that place seemed to be a lot more Airbnb oriented. But the way I would recommend looking for it is, number one, looking for reviews on the Airbnbs.
Mhm.
There were a lot that had maybe 1 or 2
Right,
reviews,
right, right.
and that was it. But you really want to look for ones that have at least 50, and you have different people, and you click on their profile, and you can see that they've stayed elsewhere. It's not just like someone generating fake reviews, because you don't want to be in that situation where someone cancels last minute and you get screwed over.
Yeah.
And then Hiroshima also um, seems to be a lot more Airbnb focused rather than hotel or hostel focused. So The hotels there are quite dated in Hiroshima. It didn't seem like they had many that were super new.
Right.
They were either you stayed in quite an old hotel or you stayed in a hostel, but the hostel was it was like a bit too expensive because there's a lack of options there.
Yeah.
But I think Hiroshima is a cool trip. I really recommend it for anyone that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Food is super good there as well. That's the birthplace of okonomiyaki, so you got to get
Nice.
that if you go to Hiroshima. And I'm telling you, man, like it is wild. It is so good to eat it in the city that it was invented in, that
Right.
dish. So I don't know if people know, but it's basically like a cabbage pancake.
Right.
It's like a savory cabbage
Yeah.
pancake, and it has this special sauce that goes on it, and it's just incredible.
It is.
Super good
It's
meal.
really good.
Is there anything in Korea that you recommend that someone eats for sure?
I think like when you go to a street vendor, right? Just get the tteokbokki. Okay, so tteokbokki is basically
Oh,
rice
that's so
cake.
good.
Okay, so it's rice cake and fish, like there's like fish strips, and
Yeah.
they're very, very, very spicy. Okay, and very hot. So when you eat it, just be a bit careful. But it is one of the most kind of authentic street food dishes. Apart from that, the general stuff, barbecue, rice dishes, and to be honest, I would also recommend even going to like a taco, right? So the way that I tasted tacos in Korea was just
Wait,
amazing.
taco?
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna talk about something like, you mean like an actual taco, like a Mexican
yeah.
taco?
So like I really like their twists on different like Western foods or like
I
South
think you said this
American
about the
food.
pizza as well.
Yeah,
You said the pizza had a twist.
yeah. It's just
Okay.
I would say if you're a fan of pizza, burger, tacos, whatever, just try your favorite food in Korea.
Yeah.
Their version will just like blow your mind.
And if you're looking for a more traditional option, obviously there's the street vendors, but I would say go to the markets. There's a lot of big markets in Korea. They're called shijangs, and they have probably the best handmade foods in Korea. They're like the best place to get either nighttime food or just like market style food and real pure authentic like traditional
Yeah,
foods. They sell
and
them there and they're
I think
really
another
really
one
good.
that I would recommend is a thing called hot dog, which is basically
Oh, they're so
a
good.
brown sugar cinnamon pancake,
Oh
which is
yeah.
So
very, very
good.
hot, and it's on the street vendors. And when I tried it, I was in Busan, and there's like a massive line just to get this small piece of brown sugar pancake. But when you taste it, and when they drizzle like kind of syrups on top and whatever, it's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah, they're
I
really really
think
good.
I think desserts in Japan are quite toned down compared to Korea. Because a lot of them are a lot more savory tasting than super sweet.
Oh yeah.
But one thing I will say is the kambinis have like ice cream in Japan was really good.
Oh.
I was in I went to, it was like there was one in Kyoto that I had that was super good. It was a matcha ice cream. It was just in some touristy area, but the ice cream was super good. All the kambinis have amazing ice cream.
Yeah.
Like any ice cream that you eat in a kambini is sick. And then oh gosh, what is that island called? Red Gate Island. Let me see. I forgot. I had a brain fart.
Or is it one of those islands which has like animals on it? Because I know there's like a rabbit island or something.
So it's a Kushima shrine in Miyajima. So we went to Miyajima Island. So I had to look it up because I had a complete brain fart. So we were in Miyajima when the um, Itsukushima shrine was being rebuilt, or they were doing some work on it. So it was a pretty cool time to go, even though all the pictures I have of the shrine, it's like the red shrine that's in the lake. If you guys
Oh
can think
yeah,
of that
yeah.
that shrine. So all the pictures I have are obviously with the construction around it, but it was only for a year or 2 years that they were doing it. So not many people will have those pictures. That's how I made myself feel better about it. But there was, I don't know, they seem to be a honey shop there was like Miyajima
Ooh.
honey, and the ice cream that I had was so goddamn good. The honey was amazing. It was like a honey ice cream, blew my mind. But a lot of the other desserts that I had were obviously like red bean based or matcha based, and they weren't super sweet. They were a bit more savory.
Right.
That sounds really good. I think in terms of healthy food, like one thing that I remember having in Korea was this thing called samgyetang,
Oh, it's so good.
right? So
What's that?
it's basically a whole chicken uh, in
Okay.
a soup. and inside the chicken they've put in rice and other healthy ingredients and
They
all this kind
put
of stuff.
the like
And
the
it's like a
main
broth,
ingredients. What's it called again?
ginseng maybe.
Yeah. That's like the main ingredient
Damn, it
for
sounds
it.
good.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
It comes boiling hot, right? And like the meat just like peels away, like peels off the skin, and then you mix it in with the soup, and it becomes like a broth, and then you have it, and it's just very, very healthy.
It's very refreshing as well. Like if you've gone out on like a real long night out, that would wake you up instantly. It's so good as well. Like
Yeah.
really good.
I feel like Korea and Japan have mastered like stews and soups
Oh, for sure.
and like
For sure.
like boiled meat. Like when I was in Tokyo with a family friend, we got shabu shabu because that was her
Oof.
favorite kind of like broth type dish. There's many other types that
Yeah.
you can get. So if you type in like Japanese broth restaurant
Yeah.
or what have you, or type in shabu shabu, you'll see the other varieties. But that's what I had, and man, it's so good. Like you basically you boil everything in a big pot, and you have to like kind of skim out you get like a little bit of foam from cooking the meat
Yeah.
because you're putting raw meat into the
Yeah,
boiling
yeah.
water with the vegetables, but it ends up the broth starts off as water and then it starts to get flavored the more you dip into it, and then at the end it just ends up becoming super super tasty.
So good.
But that's something that I think not a lot of people know about that dish. So look it up. It's called shabu shabu. There's other varieties too. There's others that have like a sauce instead of a broth or instead of water. But yeah, it's super super cool,
Yeah.
unique
I
dish.
think without a doubt, both countries have amazing food, and
Oh, for sure.
we'll never
Yeah.
be able to fully compare them because there's too many good
Except
food.
for spaghetti bread. It's an abomination.
Spaghetti bread, what in the world?
Yeah, but I think for this episode we'll end it here, and then
Yeah.
we still have lots to talk about, so we'll probably have an episode part 3 for this
Yeah,
coming
definitely.
next week. There's there's still a few things I want to kind of talk about.
I think it'll be a
Nightlife,
little
making
bit.
friends, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
I think it'll get a little bit more spicy for the next episode because there's
Yeah,
I feel like it's going to be more
Nightlife.
Korea focused though, because I had a little bit of nightlife, but not that
Yeah.
much. But I feel
Oh,
like you
So
right,
guys
I had some nightlife in Japan as well, so
Yeah.
I can
Oh,
I can
okay,
let you
cool.
know
Yeah,
about that.
I guess it will be a little bit more spicy for the next episode on the travel aspect and nightlife and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess thanks again for listening to our podcast. You can contact us on our Instagram and our Twitter. And if you have any questions, queries, or suggestions, on our Gmail, animerealtalk@gmail.com. And I guess we'll catch you guys again next week, same time on Wednesday. Bye.
Yep. See you next episode.
Peace.